What's up, YouTube? I'm Zach.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Luis.
And we are here with Bus Voyage, and today we are talking about the top 11 mistakes that we made when insulating our buses. All right, let's jump in. Here we go. Number 1. Okay, so the first mistake that we made when installing our insulation was using bad technique with spray foam. And so this is kind of inevitable because if you've never sprayed foam before, you're not going to know how to do it. But hopefully from watching this, you can learn a little bit and have better technique on your first time than we did. So if we look over here, you can kind of see that this is where I started spray foaming. And when I started, you have these big chunky layers and they're too thick. They're coming past the framing. And so I'm actually gonna have to come in and I'm gonna have to cut a lot of this away. And so what I recommend doing, step back a little bit so you have a wider spread and then just go quicker. You know, you can always go back and do more. If we look up here, you'll see it's much smoother, not as thick. So this is much more the technique that you're gonna want to try to do.
All right, so mistake number 2 is not having any coverings over the rest of your bus while you're insulating. So a big mistake that I made was I didn't put down any painter's drop cloth or any coverings on my seat, nothing taped on my windows. So when I spray foamed, obviously I got a little bit of overspray. So now it's gonna be this massive annoying process to scrape stuff off the windows, scrape the tiny coating off the wall, scrape off my seat. So that's just gonna be a huge annoyance to me, extra work that I could have avoided if I had just laid down a bunch of coverings. Another way to avoid this is to bring acetone with you. Acetone actually wipes off unreacted spray foam like it's nothing. So if I had just had a little bucket of acetone next to me, you can find it in stores as nail polish remover, just make sure it's 100% acetone. If I had had a little bit of that with me and a rag, could have wiped off the overspray instantly, but like I said, now I'm stuck with this overspray, have to scrape it all off by hand. It's gonna suck. Don't do that.
So mistake number 3, the mistake that we made this time around was we accidentally spray foamed the stuff that supports the bus, and when we're putting down pieces of plywood or 2x4s or whatever it may be, we're gonna have this obstruction here that can be a little difficult, and it's also kind of a pain to remove as well. You can see it's on. So typically what we have to do is we have to go through and we have to grab a little scraper, kind of chisel away hours on end from a mistake that we should have accounted for when we were spray foaming. So keep that in mind. Be sure that you do not spray foam these metal bits right here that support the entire bus. This is super important. And unfortunately, when we start to frame with 2x4s, we're gonna have to do a little bit of prep work beforehand. So keep that in mind.
Mistake number 4, we neglected to remove our sidewalls when we were insulating our buses. The reason that you want to take off your sidewalls here is behind these panels is some stock fiberglass from the bus manufacturer. And for transporting children, maybe an hour-long bus ride to and from school, not too big of a deal. But for us that are going to be living in these buses, having fiberglass is a big no. The human body releases a ton of moisture during sleep, and if you're going anywhere where high humidity is around, fiberglass can absorb moisture really easily and mold up really easily. And the last thing that you want when you're living in a tiny space like this is mold right next to your face. So definitely when you're insulating your bus, I would think about how much moisture you're gonna have in there and really consider pulling your sidewalls out, pulling all of the fiberglass out the sides, and cutting some EPS foam to size or spray foaming the sides.
Mistake number 5. So the 5th mistake that we made was waiting too long to spray foam. So most spray foam manufacturers recommend that you use it when the contents of the containers are at 70 degrees Fahrenheit plus. And we're in northern Utah right here building our buses. It's October and it gets cold pretty quick here. And so we've kind of been fighting to find days that are warm enough so that our spray foam will be warm enough. And so my recommendation is plan your schedule around this. So you want to make sure that you're insulating in the summer months. I mean, depending where you're at, probably May to August is probably the best time to do it.
Yeah, totally. So you can go check out our video, our earlier one, our previous one, if you would like to go see the temperature that you should be spray foaming at and get a nice little video or a nice little description of how we spray foamed our buses. So go ahead and check it out up here.
Mistake number 6, we underestimated how much spray foam we would need. We have 3 buses, right? So we needed a lot of spray foam. And we ended up making 3 runs to Home Depot and making an Amazon order to try and, cover all of our buses. So just make sure you kind of have an idea of how much square feet you want to cover before you actually purchase your spray foam. Keep that in mind next time that's it.
So mistake number 7. Mistake number 7. I spray foamed before installing my fan. If you're thinking about installing any skylights or any fans, hopefully you're installing some fans, I would definitely have cut this hole before I spray foamed, because I had to cut out, it's not too much, maybe a couple feet of spray foam out of the roof, which I wish I didn't have to do. So yeah, I would think about any holes you want to cut in your ceiling or your sidewalls before you do any spray foam insulation.
Mistake number 8. So the 8th mistake that I made when installing my insulation was using the wrong Froth-Pak. So if you look at the Froth-Pak website, they have 2 types. They have the Froth-Pak sealant and the Froth-Pak insulation. Now, the biggest difference between these is the Froth-Pak sealant is going to have a lower R value while also not having a Class A fire rating, where the Froth-Pak insulation does have that fire rating and of course a higher R value. So if you're curious, if you look online, or at these pictures right here, the Froth-Pak sealant is green while the Froth-Pak insulation is red. So we'll look over here on the wall real quick. You can kind of see the difference. So the whiter stuff up here is the sealant, while the more yellowish stuff right here is the insulation. And so the reason I have a little of both is because I originally bought the Froth-Pak 200 sealant kit, sealed the whole bus, realized I ran a little short, needed a little more, and so when I went back for the second round, I made sure to buy the insulation. So don't make the same mistake.
Mistake number 9. Not thinking about cabin insulation whatsoever. So there's a couple things with this. The first one's the most important. We didn't think about insulating the driver's seat. So specifically this area where your legs sit when you're driving, if you have a diesel engine, a lot of the heat from that diesel engine, because they put out so much energy and so much heat, can leak through to your cabin and just burn your legs up while you're driving. So if you're going on a super long road trip, you're driving for hours, all that engine heat is coming right onto your legs. Now, it's not a huge problem. You can buy it after the fact, and it's simple little panels you stick right here, right in front of your legs. Keeps a lot of the heat from hitting you, but it's something that I wish we had thought about before we started all of the insulating process. Now, the second part of this is, see right here where this subfloor ends, past that, there is no insulation in the cabin. So it would be really nice if we had, some more EPS foam board or something over here to insulate it. You can kind of seal off the cabin from the rest of your living space. It's not ideal. Again, it's just something I wish we had thought more about, how to insulate every square inch of the bus before we had started insulating.
Number 10. So the 10th mistake that I made when installing insulation was using pennies to cover the hole in the sheet metal frame of my bus under my insulation. The reason that this is a mistake is because the copper in the pennies can actually galvanize and therefore corrode and eventually leave holes in the bottom of your bus. I saw this recommended in other YouTube videos and on skoolie forums online, and so I thought it was a great idea, but I would not recommend this. Although in the short term it might be fine, it might seal those holes that were previously there from screws. In the long term, it's not going to be a sustainable solution. So what I would recommend using is either JB Weld steel sticks, or you can also use Flex Seal, or there's a lot of other options out there for sealing these holes without using copper to create that galvanic reaction. So hopefully you can avoid this mistake.
Mistake 11, creating thermal bridges in your bus subfloor. So, a big mistake that I had when putting my flooring in was that I screwed my screws directly through my plywood, my insulation, and the metal subfloor of my bus, which created a bunch of small little thermal bridges. Which means that heat can now pass easily from the outside of the bus to the inside of the bus. So metal has a higher thermal conductivity, which means that heat can transfer easier, opposed to the insulation, which we put down so we could avoid that level of heat transfer. Now, a good alternative to this is putting down an adhesive to sort of secure your insulation to the floor, and then also putting that adhesive between the insulation and the plywood, instead of me who directly screwed in the plywood and the insulation to the subfloor. So it's a good alternative, and I should have done that.
Thanks for watching our video on the 11 goofs and gaffes that we made when insulating our buses. Hopefully you don't make these yourself, and hopefully you don't pay any shoddy repairmen to do these mistakes for you.
If you want to check out us vibing and chilling with the buses, or chilling and vibing, having some fun adventures, check it out right here. If you want to check out more technical stuff, check out this video.
And if you guys enjoyed the content today, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. We put out new videos every Thursday, just showing our process converting these buses for you to follow along with. Thanks, guys.